It is time to finish off this truss repair with a plywood gusset plate on each side of the new members that we've sistered against the existing truss. I've got a piece of construction plywood here, 1/2 inch thick. It's been specified on the drawing to be 36 inches long and 16 inches deep. It has a slight bow in it, even after I cut it. So I'm going to set it so that the bow, I'm going to set it so that it's like this. So as I screw it in, I can flatten it out as opposed to having this part coming out. I'm not sure if that's a valid reason or not, but that's what I'm going to do. Now in this truss at the top, it's been spliced on the top cord, and that splice is down here. This is at the midpoint of these new 2x4, so 4 feet on each side. It's specified on the drawing that this gusset plate has to have 12 inches to the splice so that I can fit, you might see there the little red dots, 3 inches on center, 5/8 in from the top and bottom edge of this new member is where those screws have to go. They're going to be 2-inch number 8 construction screws. So I've marked this for the midpoint up there, and then there's another set of 6 screws, and then after where this web connects, there's going to be another set of screws up here to hold it. So there's going to be a total of 18 screws per side up there. So the process here is we need to also put in 6 screws down on these web members, but we can't predict where that is until the piece of wood is in place. I'm going to put that up there, and I'll put a line on the roof. To do that, I'm going to clamp this. One. So these are now clamped in place. Nice and tight. So what we need to do now is put in a set of 6 screws here and a set of 6 screws back on this web member as well. And these are also on 3-inch centers, and they're also 5/8 in from the edge of each. So instead of getting out my tape measure, lining it up, I've made a jig for that. It's just a piece of plastic, and I've marked off in here 3 inches in and 5/8 in from the edge. I made this the same width as the piece of wood that I'm working on. So I use this for several things, but this box here is the spacing I need. So what I do is I take this down here, I get it lined up so that it's mirroring where it has to go. There's a 3-inch mark here as well. I have to make sure that the first screw is at least 3 inches in from the edge. So do that. I get that lined up. And now I mark all 6 holes for this web member. I'm going to go to the back. And do the same back here. So I'm using this extra piece of plastic to line it up as accurately as I can. And then I mark those. So now I have 12 new markings on there where the other 2-inch construction screws go. The last thing I'm going to do is draw a line on the truss so that after I drill the holes, I can pull this piece of wood off and I know exactly how far my construction adhesive has to go to make sure that we cover the entire plywood gusset plate. I've actually hit the screws that are holding these members together. So I'm going to put them a little bit more towards the center. 1/4 inch. There's 30 pilot holes drilled. Now when you're working, you don't actually have to drill pilot holes and then take the piece of wood down. You can put your construction adhesive up first, then line up your wood and do all of that, because this construction adhesive specifies you've got 30 minutes to work. That's enough time to do all that work. Now I'm putting on the construction adhesive. I'm going to put 2 beads on each piece of wood here. I'm going to make sure that the bead goes over top of the holes so that the screw goes through. I'm going to make sure I go past the line. So that there's glue all along the inside of this gusset plate. Make sure I go past the line that I made. These type of guns, you can release the pressure here and actually pull the plunger back a little bit, and that'll keep your adhesive from running out onto the floor because there's too much pressure left in the tube. Go. Pardon the top of my head. So now, you have to be very careful you don't brush against this. If you lean against it, you'll get construction adhesive all over the back of your shirt. Now I clamped this when we did our pilot holes. That's to keep it from moving around. At this point, you can put it up by eye. And the fact that it didn't ratchet, it didn't encounter too much resistance, means that we found our pilot hole. And same with everything else. I'm going to start at the middle and work my way out to the edges. That way I'm not trapping any slack in the center by doing that last. I'm going to sit on my little jig here on my stool. So it's questionable if you need to drill pilot holes when putting construction screws into new green timber like that. I've always been taught that a pilot hole is the strongest way to go. So I'm just going to do it for this. Certainly do it for the old stuff because it's kind of brittle. You can see it just wants to crack. So I'm going to do the one on the back side, and for that one I'm just going to put up the construction adhesive, clamp it, and drill 2 pilot holes, put 2 screws in it, and then drill the rest of the pilot holes and screw right through that because that's the fastest way to go.